Ananya, and in today's lecture we will be understanding closures. Now in the last lecture we finished with understanding first class functions in Python. Closure is built off of the concept first class functions. So in case you missed it, kindly just go and have a quick look at it. You'll understand that pretty well and come back and understand closures again. So what are closures? Closures are basically, or rather say, it helps in data encapsulation and data hiding. So we will be using the same examples, or rather say the same uses that we saw in the previous lecture, because you see first class functions and closures are sort of interrelated, and maybe sometimes we think closures are a little difficult to understand, but you know that's really not the case. When you actually see it being implemented, you'll be wondering, oh, I really got it, it's not that difficult at all. So let's implement it, see it working out practically, and I'm sure you will not be afraid of closures anymore. So let's get started. Alright, so before we actually get started with the concept of closures, I want to give you all a quick recap of the concept of nested functions. We have done nested loops, nested conditional statements, and now it's time for nested functions. Well, it's pretty simple. We just did a pretty similar concept in functions, okay? The concept of first class functions, right? So in case you all have seen that, you all know about this. Okay, a quick run through, then we'll get going. I have a function named outside. Okay, and inside it I have some certain code, but we'll come to that a little later. So firstly, I'm printing that I'm alone, okay? I'm not inside any of the functions. And now I call the function outside. So what happens is, now after I say I'm without any function, I am currently with Mr. Outside, okay? That is with the outside function. Next, I say I am about to meet Mr. Inside function. Now, this area basically gets skipped, okay? The interpreter just reads it because we haven't called it, so it won't yet do any work. So, after I'm alone, it says I'm with Mr. Outside function, and then it comes and says I'm about to meet Mr. Inside function now. And now when I actually call func in, it will say that now I am inside function in. All right. So this is basically nested functions. Pretty easy, right? We just saw the concept. So you'll have this number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Well, let's run it now. All right. I hope you all can, just a moment. I hope you all can see the exact same order that we just saw. All right. Now this being done, we have our basics revised. Let's move ahead. Now, as I said, closures and first class functions are pretty correlated. Now, before moving to this example, I want to take the example that I took in first class functions. It was basically this example. Now, inner functions, or rather say not inner functions, the function pets, okay, or the function animals, they are first class functions, right? We know the concept behind it, so we also know why they are first class functions. And last time I had mentioned that we look into how the value of info is remembered, okay? So the string I can be a great pet too gets passed into info, and even after it comes, after returning pets to dog, it comes out of the animals function, it still remembers that info is I can be a great pet too. Okay, the value of this local variable is remembered, and that is the concept of closures. Okay, so you see how they are interrelated. You can basically combine both of these two topics together and form an example. Now I hope you'll understood this, but I'm going to take another example so that it gets a little more clear. And stay with me till the end so that I can give you all a clear, short difference between closures and first class functions. So if you all can see, I have two functions, one function defined inside the other. And inside a variable C1, I have called the outer function, that is cfunc, and I have passed the value 9. So the first, I'm basically carrying out addition of two numbers, okay? So the first value is 9, which gets assigned to the variable first. Now, after reading it, it comes to this line, okay? So it says return addition. Now, return addition basically goes and assigns itself to C1. The same concept with C2. First gets stored into 10. Okay, that is 10 gets stored into first. And then addition is again stored into C2. Now, if I say these are objects, okay, they are respective objects. So C1 stores addition, C2 also stores addition. But along with that, they remember the respective values of first. That is C1 value, first value of C1 is 9 and first value of C2 is 10. Now, when I print this, I hope you all know this, mod D, we are basically doing, formatting of integers, like formatting of strings. We had done this long before. And now I'm calling the object C1, which is now a function. And to that, I pass the number 3. So 3, if you guessed it right, will go to the variable to add. So remember, it stores the function addition, and hence it returns 9 plus 3, since it is the function C1. And next, when I say C2 of 3, it'll again go back to addition, store 10 inside to add, and it'll store 3 inside to add, and then it'll return 10 plus 3. All right. I hope you all understood this. It's actually pretty simple. If you all want, just take a moment, pause the video, and just go through it, and then we'll see the output. All right. Now, if you all can see, we've got 3 plus 9 is 12, and 3 plus 10 as 13. All right. So again, one last run through. C1 and C2 are basically objects initially, and they are assigned functions cfunc, and the first variable is stored, or rather say gets stored, with values 9 and 10 respectively for C1 and C2. And since we are returning addition, the function addition gets stored into C1 and C2 respectively, and then they become functions themselves. And then when you call C1 and C2 via any parameter, it'll go inside this entire function and return the addition value to you. So this was all about closures. It's easy, isn't it? It's not at all tough. Now, for the difference part. What is closure? We'll be looking at closure first. Closures are the inner functions. For example, the addition function that we just saw. They can access the variables of their outer functions or their parent functions. In this case, cfunc. All right. So just as we saw, it could remember the value of the variable first from its parent function. That is the concept of closure. Now, what is first class function? First class function is those that can be returned or assigned to a variable. That is, for example, the function cfunc. We were assigning it to variables C1 and C2. And also, addition is also a first class function. Why? Because we were returning it and storing it inside C1 and C2. All right, I hope you all got the concept of it now. All right, so now we have our base ready. We have learned about first class functions, and we have learned about closures. It's time we know about decorators. All right, so I'll see you all next time with the topic of decorators.